Oh, hello, and welcome to Audente Rigamortis. I'm Review Cultist.
Hey, I'm back. It's Adam from RPX Adam here, and I brought some friends. Friends?
I mean, I already knew my way to get here. You made this mistake once before. Hi, I'm Brownie. I've reviewed other things here on this wonderful podcast.
This is Jeremy, longtime listener, first-time caller.
And we're here to discuss those internet stories, most creepy and most pasta, and be critically silly doing it. Tonight we have the Romanian knowledge experiment. So, this is going to be 2025 is going to be the year that I knock out all the creepypastas that are on a certain definitive creepypasta iceberg listing. So, I decided to grab Adam, and then we ended up grabbing Brownie and Jeremy in the process to help me do some, or like to help me collect some of those stories and start discussing them and reviewing them. So, starting off with the Romanian knowledge experiment by Jpvl 1, or at least that's who it's credited to on creepypasta.wiki. And I'm sure this is going to be a perfectly sound experiment, just like the Russian sleep experiment or the Harbinger experiment before it. So, but before we get too far ahead, we should probably give our initial recommendations, as is tradition on the show. I'm going to recommend it, just fully recommend it.
I do as well. I enjoyed it. It was fun. It was a short read to the point that I felt like I wanted more of it. But I mean, it's perfect from start to finish.
I also recommend it. It is entertaining and short.
I also recommend it for the same exact reasons. It is short, it is entertaining, it leaves me wanting to know more about the world and what it is, and I really enjoyed it.
Okay, well, let's dive into the story, into our notes and stuff like that, to elaborate a little bit more on that. Starting with the rundown. So, in 1960, a scientist named Alexandru or Alejandro?
Romanian, not
Dr. Sith, or Dr. Sift. A scientist named Dr. Sift conducted various experiments with test subjects in the Hoi Bacciu forest of eastern Romania, also known as the world's most haunted forest. Sadly, most of his research notes from then were burned upon his death in 1993, but what was recovered were always signed with "Knowledge is harmful, ignorance is bliss." Then 10 years later, the Romanian government took what notes there were and conducted their own experiments in the woods, dropping 3 test subjects off with some gear in the woods at midnight, 1 person per night. The difference between them was their source of dark vision. They were to write down any findings every 30 minutes and report to a cabin for extraction. The first guy had an oil lamp, and he made it to the cabin by 2 a.m. and reported on his paper that he felt he was being followed by something which unnerved him. The second guy was given an infrared camera and made it to the cabin at 5 a.m. His paper had sparse notes, as it appeared to have been as he was hounded all night by a large thing in the woods that he couldn't quite see fully because of the darkness and the infrared's blotchy, like red and blue and yellow shapes. The third guy was given a night vision camera, but never made it to the cabin and went missing. But the agents at the cabin found a ragged piece of paper, supposedly from the third subject, who, after 5 minutes from his placement in the forest, came face to face with an entity in the woods and saw it clearly with the night vision. He described a bestial humanoid thing that began lumbering toward him, breaking trees in its path. Since then, the Romanian government has erected electrified fencing and watchtowers around Hoi Bacciu to keep anyone out and in. Fin. That is basically the quick and dirty of the Romanian knowledge experiment. I don't have any grammar inquisition, much to, I'm sure, the chagrin of my other hosts. But we will dive into actual thoughts. Unless any of you guys have any grammar inquisition you'd like to put down.
No, I think the only complaint I have, or complaint about it, had nothing to do with this. But when I first glanced at it, I mean, I looked at it, but then I was listening to it on YouTube prior to recording. And the particular YouTube channel that I had was it substituted some words for other words. So if you look at the Creepypasta wiki, and depending on what you click on YouTube to listen to it, if you decide to as it goes, there's just a few minor words. I mean, it's not as bad as if you watch something that's been dubbed into an anime has been dubbed into English, but you're looking at the translation and the words are all over the place. It's just a minor jarring thing as I was, looking at it and listening to it at the same time. But yeah, I mean, it's perfect.
Okay. No one else? Brownie, Jeremy?
The only things that really break the rules are things that were in person as the person speaking and thinking and writing things down. So no complaint.
So, in other words, it's the way the character writes.
Mm-hmm.
In the note, it doesn't move as I write this. It doesn't even blink. It has no eyebrows. It's higher than any human or bear I've ever encountered. It's hunched like a gorilla. All in quotes, written down by the person, perfectly acceptable. The only bad grammar in this entire thing is in the commenters below.
Yes. True. Well, then on to the actual thoughts segment. So right off the hop, when it's talking about like in 1960, Alejandro Sift, a well-known scientist, traveled to the forest of Hoi Bacciu, located in eastern Romania. As soon as I read like Hoi Bacciu, I actually recognized that from various paranormal videos and shows that I've watched over the years. Because it is apparently like it is sort of infamous of being like the world's most haunted forest. And I think it's even a partial inspiration for the Transylvanian region in the in the modern or urban horror MMO, The Secret World. So yeah, it is indeed a creepy location in the real world to actually like use for a story. The next thing I have. So this quote here, 10 years later, the Romanian government developed interest in the few notes that survived, so they sought to recreate his experiment. So this is regarding like Dr. Sift, but 10 years from when? 1960 or 1993 when he died?
Assuming it's his death.
It would
have
to be his death because they reference the ruined notes that were burned upon his death. So they wouldn't have been in that state prior.
Yeah.
And then the technology wouldn't have existed for...
Oh, you're right. Yeah, you're right. Like, it does even say, like, the government developed interest in the few notes that survived. So, yeah, my bad.
No, it's fine. Around with functional night vision and infrared in the 60s.
Well, yeah, because, in the 60s, did they not have, like, kind of infrared or, like, did they not have
infrared,
that technology?
Maybe, but not... I'm going to assume it probably wasn't portable, and night vision was, if they had it, it was probably pretty infancy.
Fair.
Yeah, it would have been the kind that burns your eyes out if a candle moves by.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then the next one I have is, it goes into like the test subjects getting like the gear they had. They were given a backpack, food, water, a compass, and an oil lantern for the first guy specifically. And then the only thing that changed for the other ones was the ultravision or the infrared camera and then the night vision camera. And then it says that they were told to like write down notes on a sheet of paper or in a sheet of paper. So this is my first grammar thing. I do have one grammar issue. It should be on a sheet of paper. On a sheet of paper.
Oh, they're actually putting it in the paper.
Yeah, they're just like just burying the pencil into the paper.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I'm just gonna be lounging in the nitpick nook, guys. It's because it's like they should have probably specified that like they had paper for jotting down notes and maybe some kind of time device. Because like I know you can tell the time without a device, but you'd think that would be something that they would have given the guy to like to be able to like report like what his findings every half hour.
Honestly, I think that's more down to the more commonality of like a wristwatch during the era that this is set in.
True. Like, well, this is the experiment that was 10 years after the guy's death, so 2003, I guess.
A little bit before really commonality of smartphones and their ubiquity.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I can see wristwatches being a more common thing and thus an overlooked item.
Yeah, that's fair.
So format-wise, it really harkens back, and of course, I mean, this is an older style anyway. If you have Edgar Allan Poe with, A Telltale Heart and things like that, with your narrator and all that, well, there's no particular narrator here until you actually get to the written spots here. But it kind of reminded me of that, and also reminded me of like, 100, well, not quite 100 years after Poe, but then Lovecraft did Dagon. And it was him describing seeing this monster shape or rising out of the ocean when he landed on his island, and now he's back in the room and oh god, at a hotel, and he's on opium, and oh god, there's something at the door. I'm going to flee out the window.
Yeah, it's crashing through, and I'm going to leave out the window.
I think my joy of this, and it's pretty it's very cut and dry, ABCD kind of down the order here.
Yeah.
I really am interested in what the Romanian government did find. So if this man was doing his experiments out in 1960, and obviously wasn't using that type of technology, I wonder what, I wonder why they decided to use what they used and things like that. There's kind of an unspoken thing that perhaps could be speaking to the insidiousness of like the government kind of sending these sacrificial lambs out into the woods.
That actually kind of ties to what my next thing here, which is regarding that, like the third guy is the one that gets killed because he had the night vision camera, and they were kind of like it seemed like they were wondering like why they did this first guy, he went to the woods, he made it to the cabin. Second guy, same place at the next night, almost made it to the cabin, but had to like basically like wait out certain areas because the creature was stalking him. And then the third guy doesn't even make it. So my initial reaction to that was like, well, gee, I wonder why. It's almost like the creature caught wind of a potential food source that was being delivered to them every night at the same location. So of course, they're basically just chumming the water, right? But then when I was reading the comments after reading the story, some people actually caught wind of like that it was like it might have been like a cognito hazard, which is a term that the SCP Foundation uses for things that like you don't want to see. The more you look at it, the more it becomes real, or the more it becomes a threat. And the whole fact that the Dr. Sift does sign off all his notes with like knowledge is harmful, ignorance is bliss, and the suggestion is that the creature was actually only killed the last guy because the last guy saw it the clearest, like saw it in the most detail. So like the less you see this thing, the less harmful it is to you. But the more if you see it in like full detail, it can hurt you, kind of thing.
To me, it kind of more like whenever they first sent the guy out, he had a lantern, maybe, and then they described it as not having eyelids or anything like that. Maybe it couldn't stand how the flame was. Like you literally can't look at it. So they gave him infrared, and then when the second guy came out, it was just like, oh, what's that? And then they gave the other guy the night vision, and they were like, well, there's nothing stopping me from eating this guy now.
Yeah, it kind of harkens to the idea that like, it wasn't like that. The more you see it, the more harmful it is. It kind of felt to me like the more it was getting. It was becoming more and more aware that this location every night was a potential food source delivery package. So,
to expand on your no eyelids reaction to light, infrared puts out light on a level that we
Oh,
can't see, and then uses that light to enhance it. Perhaps the infrared light was equally as irritating or slightly less irritating, let's say, to the lidless eyes.
Yeah. Hence why, and
And
then the night vision. What does night vision do to make it?
depends.
Yeah. Okay.
It really depends. Yeah. The other thing is, you say they're only equipped with a different form of light, let's say, but
Yeah.
really they're equipped with a different level of knowledge. And if you want to go back to the 60s when these technologies didn't exist, maybe the first guy was sent out with a match, and the second guy was sent out with a candle, and the last guy was sent out with a lantern. You never know. I mean, there are different levels of revealed knowledge even in those old times.
Yeah, that's true.
And I have a different idea of why the Elder God, is what I'm going to call it, decided to kill this person. And I'm going to include a meme sent to you, gentlemen, in the recording.
Uh-oh.
It is the "Do not shine light in Elder God's face." Elder God is silhouetted for a reason. If anyone wants to see this, you just have to search for Elder God, Best God, and you will find it on Reddit.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you. And I know exactly what comic series that's from. That's from Ogloff.
Yes.
Oh, that's awesome. I haven't seen that comic. I haven't seen that one yet.
So,
It's old, very old.
Is it really? Okay.
Yes.
It's been a while.
all right. So at this moment, I would like to bring something up. Here's my thoughts. Have you all seen Nope?
Not
never
yet.
did.
No.
Oh God.
I have not.
Well, if I talk about it, then I'm going to end up ruining Nope for you.
And the
yeah,
listeners.
that's fair. Yeah, and listeners. Yeah. I mean, there's no. Yeah, like I could put a spoilers if you want, but it's also
No, I just rather take it. But I mean, if you get an it does remind me of elements of that film, and it's worth checking out. But a casual observation is, if you look something in the eye, it's like predatory dominance kind of thing like that. Like you're blessed by the fact that you can't see it with the light and it's illuminated. You're cognizant enough that you can sense it. And then the next technology is a little bit better and you're getting a little bit closer to all that. I just wonder if it's just kind of a predator out in the woods, and if you're kind of, when you look at it, you're kind of challenging it kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's sort of like it's that, and like also like you stare into the abyss stares back into you kind of thing. Like you look into something, like look at something, and it becomes aware of you.
I'm thinking of like a bird. Have you ever seen a bird outside of a vehicle window looking at its reflection, pecking at it and shit because it thinks there's another bird? It's like, hey, motherfucker. It's what it strikes me as,
Yeah. Or it's like, with the like a predator kind of thing. It's like, like it's stalking you, but as soon as you make contact with it, as soon as you break contact with it, or like eye contact with it, it's going to pounce. It's sort of like don't mountain lions do that or something like that? Like you have to kind of like stay facing them, because otherwise they're like, if you try to turn your back and run, they'll start chasing, or they'll pounce.
Yeah, you'll trigger that instinctual kind of, oh, this is prey. It's acting like prey.
Yeah.
I think tigers do that as well.
Yeah, like big cats tend to do that, I think.
Like people don't they wear like masks that has a face on the back of their heads there just to kind of fuck with the tigers over in there?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. I've not heard of that.
Yeah. It's so they don't always think something's looking at them, so they don't, you don't have their back on them.
Yeah. And then the next thing I have here is the quote about the third person's like description is like, after the helicopter, after you couldn't see the helicopter anymore, they turned their camera to check the surroundings and saw this thing like 20 meters away from them. It had no eyebrows. It's higher than a human or a bear that they've ever encountered. It's hunched like a gorilla, supporting its weight on the extremities of its limbs. I can't even call those things hands. It has fish-like eyes, no pupils, pure engulfing darkness. Oh God, it's tearing down trees as it moves. And then like that's basically the last bit of the third guy's note. And so when I was like reading this, like, oh, so it's like some kind of like shark man beast or Bigfoot kind of situation. Like they've encountered some kind of like big bestial monster in the woods of these haunted woods, and it got my. I tend to think of like in terms of tabletop games and scenario ideas nowadays. Weird. It's almost like I have a sister podcast called One Less Die. Plug, 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 plug.
It's on the Crit in the Night Network. Plug, plug, plug.
Yeah. Friends of RPX. Plug, 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 plug.
Soon to be adding additional podcasts. Plug, plug, plug.
Yeah. But yeah,
Stay
so
tuned.
so the fodder I kind of had for this was the Secret World tabletop RPG, a scenario for it. See how I brought it all back around from earlier. So like the players are either sent in to conduct a similar experiment to ascertain the nature of the creature that's being like held within this forested confines, or they are trying to recover one that has escaped the forest containment already. And for the setting of the Secret World, it could either be like maybe a filth-tainted or corrupted Bigfoot species of the Eurasian continent, because there's tons of Bigfoot-like species out there, as well as it could even be like the filth entities in the Secret World setting are very much like deep ones in some cases. So it could even be like a shark-like mutation. And then it could also even be like a werewolf-like species, because in the Secret World setting, there are just roving packs of werewolves in the Carpathian Mountains and the surrounding Romanian countryside. So it could be one of those things that are just stalking around in the woods, or it could be something that's corrupted by the rich materials that are seeping out of the ground in such locations. And the characters are either conducting their own or part of an experiment that's being conducted in the forest, or they are trying to retrieve said experiments that have broken containment.
Mm-hmm.
And that also kind of ties into my next thing, which is at the end of the story, it concludes that after the experiments, the Romanian government placed electrified fencing and guard towers around the entire Hoi Bakchu forest. They made sure not to let anyone in or out. And I'm guessing this part of the story is also fictional, because when I know this forest from previous like research and things I've seen, and Googling up the forest itself, you get a ton of touristy sites and camping advisories, just because of the reputation this forest has for being the world's most haunted forest. So there's like tons of ghost adventuring people and tours and stuff like that happen in this forest. So it's maybe not like electrified or fencing and guards towers in real life, but like in the story's fiction, I suppose that's the situation at hand.
Well, we were over on RPX kicking around the idea of playing a National Flesh Pit National Park. What the fuck's it called, Brownie?
That's close enough. Flesh Pit National Park will get the idea across.
Yeah,
but
honestly, that's another thing that I need to tackle on Ulterior Mortis at some point, because it did start off as a bunch of like Tumblr posts or like Tumblr like posts and stuff of that online with like graphic work and such. So
yeah.
Mystery Flesh Pit National Park.
That's what it was. Yeah, Mystery Flesh Pit.
you could totally rescan that, take away the flesh pit thing, and it's just
Yeah. Have you guys ever have you guys seen any images of this of the Hoi Bakchu forest?
No.
It is
just in the meme.
Very interesting. It's got like weird bendy tree, like whole like sections of it that are just like bended tree trunks that like are all like coiled in a certain way. I mean, it is certainly it's certainly in when you see like some of the if you Google image the forest, it certainly inspires creepy atmosphere, just with like how strange some of the trees have grown in it, and like what the location kind of looks like. And it's also like right next to Transylvania, so like basically it's right in like Dracula's neck of the woods. So I'm sure that didn't help matters.
Of course, having heard you say that, review cultist, it makes me think, what kind of vampires in Romania in the Twilight world?
Oh no. No.
No.
that this is what this creature is. It's just that's
Weird
why
mutated vampire. It's the one of the
Romanian
Voltaire.
or
He's
Romanian Jacob.
yeah, it could be Romanian Jacob. Yeah,
Mhm.
I was about to do a really bad like Romanian. It's like this is the skin of a killer, Bello.
Are these the feelers of a killer, Bella?
Say it with your whole chest.
Which I hope
Slay it with whole chest.
You goddamn mouth.
Oh God. Yeah.
Game
God.
fodder wise, I think I just like the idea of that being a fear itself game.
Yeah,
know,
I could see that.
You could do Datloff Pass the same way too.
Yeah. Yeah, Detloff
do,
Pass another creepy mystery.
No, that's there's a historical precedence for Datloff Pass. Now, whether it was supernatural or just unfortunate,
the elements.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I
slasher flick as well.
slasher flick, yeah, you can do that.
Can't be tongue in cheek.
Yeah. Hell, yeah, like you can also just do it like just straight up Delta, basically any horror system like Delta Green, Cthulhu, Call of Cthulhu, Esoterrorist.
I mean, this whole thing figures directly into the inverse relationship in Call of Cthulhu between your sanity and Cthulhu mythos. The more you know about how things work, the less safe and the less sane you are.
That is absolutely true. Yeah. It could, I mean, with Call of Cthulhu, it could even just be like a Loiger, like one of those things that it's like, it's actually not, the thing on the surface actually isn't a real creature. It's the thing, there's something under the ground that's like influencing the surface, and causing like that paranoia.
They can misshape people, and maybe that thing's what it makes people.
Flesh cracker.
True. Yeah. Yeah, I think there's definitely a bunch of ideas. Like, there's definitely a lot of ideas to pull from this for horror scenario fodder.
And it doesn't have to be the focus of it. I mean, even if you took something like Pelgrane Press's Night's Black Agents, which he did that Dracula dossier supplement. Like, if you're just getting close to Dracula's realm and you're cutting through the forest to get there, then that may just be a fun little diversion where, your players with their Jason Bourne tech have got to take on that thing.
Yeah. Another staple from both of our podcasts, Vossen. Either in the early 19th century, or again get that expansion or that errata that somebody made for modern Vossen, where you're dealing with stuff in the modern day, like you're camping out in the Romanian forests, or you're somebody who's taking up the government's offer to go down there for like some experiment that's going on. Like, honestly, even the setup it would kind of work. Like, all right, here we're going to send this group of people into the woods at midnight with different types of like viewing apparatuses, and you guys all have to like basically like span out and go and make it to a cabin by the end of the night, and then just have basically the horror movie or horror scenario transpire as they try to navigate through a dense, dark forest.
I feel like it would almost be more of a social media YouTube influencer doing a stupid challenge trying to get through there and then not making it back.
Blair Witch 5, yeah.
Well, again, if you look online, like if you look on YouTube, like type in like Hoi Bakchu Forest, like there's a bunch of people who, again, social media like influencers or like just those like would be like paranormal ghost hunter people on YouTube that have gone out, have set up trips to go out to this forest and try and record like EMFs, MP, or what is it? Yeah, EMF or EMV recordings and such. Try to find proof of the hauntings and the ghosts and the other creatures that apparently lurk in this woods. So,
and then all they do is they end up filming their own face and like,
and just getting scared, and it's
this is what a Navy SEAL would see if they scared me in the middle of the night. Oh my god!
Yeah, I'll be honest. I tend to watch those not because I expect to see something creepy, but just because of like the creepy atmosphere of them just being in those dark woods and like just watching a bunch of fools get like scared in the woods.
Or you can bring it out of the woods. Somebody captured it on their camera, but they didn't see it and whatnot.
Oh.
But then it kind of rings you,
Yeah, it follows you.
the
Turns
editor.
into a tulpa.
Yeah.
Bring it out of the woods. Are you saying, Adam, that if you're cold, they're cold, bring them inside?
Yeah, indeed. Like
Yeah.
if you're leaving your animals out in the cold, stay out there with them, assholes.
We're bringing them to the concrete jungle, or the concrete forest.
Jason takes Manhattan at this point.
Yeah, no, legit. Yeah.
I was thinking of Predator too. I think King Willie
Yeah,
gets killed by it.
Come on, motherfucker, let's dance. Want some candy?
Bill Paxton. We lost a national treasure with him.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think this is just basically going to show that, like, yeah, this is like this location, which is real. It is a real location, has a real reputation for being super haunted.
Mhm.
Like this story and our talk here has kind of like shown that, like, yeah, this is perfect fodder for some kind of fictional piece of material, whether it be like a game or a story.
Yeah.
So.
And it's an homage, undoubtedly, to the Russian sleep experiment, and I think it did it well. It was, the inclination for young writers in general, or just people just aren't super well to craft, is to just keep writing more and more and more. And this thing was just so concise that it was, I don't know, it was a breeze. I've read some of these things that just like, all right, there's the pair. That's a run-on sentence. That's, somebody trying to hit a page count. This thing was literally one.
My
and
notes
3.
were, as somebody stated, my notes were longer than this story.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, it was fun.
Also, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off on like getting the page count.
I was rattling much like I was preaching against not rattling. You caught me in my hypocrisy, sir.
Fair. But do you guys have, that's for my actual thoughts. So do you guys have anything else to say for your actual thoughts before we dive into final thoughts?
The only thing that got me was, why did it stick around in those woods?
It could be territorial, like in that regard.
Yeah. Is there more than one?
Yeah.
Is electric fences and guard posts going to actually be a thing that's going to keep it in? What if it left whenever they were doing that? Like, has anybody seen it since?
Yeah. Also, if this thing is like, the more you see it, the more it can attack you. Like, if it's got spotlights on it by somebody in a guard tower, is there going to be a story later on of like of this thing like just like decimating a guard tower?
Mm-hmm.
Which actually would sensitive to light.
And actually, that could be an interesting, again, game fodder idea. Is like, you're the guards, part of the Romanian. You've got this weird duty as employees of the Romanian government to stand watch on this tower at a national park, basically, or like these national woods. And then something happens. Maybe another tower gets hit by something, and you guys are the only ones in the area, so you have to go investigate and like track down like you see like trails of something that's taken somebody, so you guys have to go into those woods in the middle of the night and try and retrieve the person, or and find out what fuck around and find out, basically.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
and with the guy that ended up going missing, if that thing can fleshcraft, did it just make another one?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I find a lot of like, especially modern stuff nowadays, or like in the last couple of years, there's definitely been a focus on like creatures that assimilate and mimic. So like things that can blend into like trees and stuff like that, and then they just like they take their victims, and rather than eat them, they just make them into them.
Mm-hmm.
or consume them, and then suddenly they duplicate.
They got that Fishman mojo.
Yeah.
I was also thinking about the creator of Facebook. That's right. I also noticed in your notes, it made me giggle, Chris. I'm sorry.
Oh.
As I read your notes, it says, since the Romanian government has erected electrified fencing, and when I first read it, I read the Romanian government's erect electrified fencing. So
Yeah, as soon as
They got
when
really
I typed
excited.
when I typed in like, is that from the rundown?
Yeah.
When I wrote down like erected electric fencing, part of my brain was like erected, and it was like, shut up, cultist.
They got a rise out of this thing.
God damn it.
Thanks, Jeremy.
So immature, but so fun.
Something stiff competition. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think-
Mm.
I guess
That's why it's
before you get to
territorial.
I
What was
guess before you get to the final thought, so the Blair Witch mention, like the last
Yeah.
version of the movie, and I think even the video game with the doggo, which I would run my character to death to save that doggo from dying. But
You, Adam? Your track record? No kidding.
yeah, oh,
If someone's
come
going to
on.
kill a dog, it's him.
Having a dog
All right.
suddenly has changed for you.
I'm sorry, but I love the dog. That's why I just didn't want
I know.
heartache. They play with time, like
Yeah.
time travel, time looping. I really think it would be fun that if you played this game at the Romanians, if you went back in to conduct it in 2013 or something like that, that you will eventually run into maybe one or all the men who went out there with different lighting apparatuses. Maybe part of them are still in there.
Yeah.
Or the doctor himself. And oh my God, I got out. Oh no. Yeah, I shouldn't. I didn't want to get out. I shouldn't have got out.
He totally died in 1993.
Mm-hmm.
What was that
also-
Delta Green game that we played where the kid comes back?
Fulminate.
Operation Fulminate. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Honestly, I like Operation Fulminate is such a good like Reddit no sleep style like creepypasta like scenario.
It was based on
Like
a missing 411.
Yeah, and I think a lot of Reddit no sleep stories specifically kind of like take inspiration from those missing 411. So yeah. Actually, you were talking about the Detloff Pass earlier. Given like if you want like draw inspiration, there is actually a movie that came out a while back. I think it's called The Devil's Pass. It's a found footage film. And you could take I'm not going to spoil it, but like take some of the stuff from that and put it in this, and it's very similar to what you're kind of going with of like like things in the wilderness and like the way the monsters act and stuff of that in there.
Yeah.
Would be pretty good. So but yeah, anybody else have anything they want to bring up about this story?
Just in final thoughts.
Okay. Well, then I guess no time like the present. Into final thoughts. I'm still going to recommend it fully. It's a pretty short one, but it has a neat little creepy setup and is grounded in a real world creepy location, which is always cool. So really, it's a simple and sweet recommend.
I'll go next. I will continue to recommend it. I also enjoyed it. It's 5-10 minute read. You can kick through it pretty fast. It's engaging. It has enough story beats in it to where it kept me interested. I'll definitely put my seal of approval on that one.
Despite the fact that they refer to 12 a.m. as a 0 semicolon or colon 05 a.m. instead of just 12.
Oh, that's weird. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
It's like weird. So like, and if you're going from like a computer science kind of standpoint, you count 0 as 1, right? So it just, I don't know. It just seemed like at one point the author decided to go military time, maybe, and all that. But I don't know. It's weird. But despite that being my only nitpick that I just noticed at this fleeting moment right here.
Please sit in the nitpick nook with me.
He's nitpicking the fact that I nitpicked too late. That. I mean, I like it, and I think I want to look and see what other kind of experiments. I'm looking for the East Tennessee potato salad experiment and all other.
Yeah, it's the three so far. I've done like three. We on El Dente Rigor we've done 3 experiment stories. The first one was the Russian sleep experiment, which was a bunch of people that were like forced to like stay awake and like something horrible happened to them and such. The next one was the Harbinger experiment, which I think involved like these very like deformed mutations and stuff like that. And then this one is just this one's honestly like this one. It is an experiment. It's in it's a Romanian forest, so it's the Romanian experiment. And like the knowledge thing, I guess, is just like to like try and I guess it's actually in the title, what exactly, like the where the horror is, or where the how this thing is like horrific is, like your knowledge of this thing makes it like is what the experiment was about. Is like, I guess, trying to ascertain knowledge on this thing, or like, and that knowledge is what kind of dooms you during the experiment.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And for my final thoughts, I definitely recommend it. It was short. It was interesting. There is one thing, however, I do not recommend, and that is recreating experiments from a Soviet era scientist in a Soviet country that drove the scientists insane and caused them to burn their note. I just can never recommend that.
Oh yeah.
If you find a cabin in the woods and there's a thing called the Necronomicon in there and there's a record next to it, don't play it.
Yeah, maybe don't. Maybe like just take that vinyl and just snap over your knee.
Throw it in the fire. It's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, isn't that what happened to the creator of Tetris?
Hey, Crazon, this is Kandar, not Kantdar, okay?
Yeah.
Not with that
Well,
attitude.
all I'm saying is, to take from the immortal words of Mitchum Cleary, don't read them books. It's where they hide the madness. But yeah. Well, yeah. Adam, you gave yours, right? Your recommendation. Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Then yeah, I guess that'll do it for this week's episode. So if you like what you heard, or if you didn't, leave a comment in the comment section below where this gets posted. We're all on Twitter, I believe, or to some extent. You guys, where can people find you?
Okay. Well, Role Playing Exchange can be found at creditandnight.com. That's our podcast network. Same as Al Dente Rigor Mortis and One Less Die. I'm sorry if it sounds like I'm in pain. There's a cat currently biting my hand right now, but I'll try to soldier through this here. If you want to find Role Playing Exchange elsewhere, we're on Twitter at RP Exchange. Same thing for Blue Sky. And I haven't set up a Mastodon account yet, but I mean, it's a pretty good metal band, so I'll probably end up doing that too. And we're occasionally on Facebook whenever I remember that the site exists, and it's facebook.com/roleplayingexchange. Anyone else?
Nah, I think you covered it. I think we're all basically in the same spots.
All right.
I can be found mostly in those places, but also occasionally on Technical Difficulties podcast.
All right. And I'm you can find me at Review Cultist on Twitter and on Blue Sky, same name. You can also send us emails at aldenterigamortis@gmail.com. That's ALDENTERIGAMORTS@gmail.com. Where you can also leave us suggestions for other creepypastas, SCPs, spooky things. You creep it, we'll peep it. Yeah! And if you'd like to help support our show financially, you can go to Patreon. We have special episodes, early access, and extra content. To all our patrons that help support the show, thank you immensely. You're helping keep those hosting bills at bay. And as always, we very much appreciate that. Do you guys, or Adam, do you want to pimp out the RPX Patreon?
Hey, we like money just as well as the next person. And yeah, so if you want to go to patreon.com/roleplayingexchange, we have early access. We have our own little show we've been doing for the past year called, on top of actual plays, called RPX Roll Up. You will see everybody that's on this episode is in there quite often, and it's the session zero for the game that never happened or hasn't happened yet, where we pick a new system each month, roll up characters, and discuss the process and what we like and don't like about it.
And to all our listeners and the authors of these stories, thank you immensely, because without your listenership, it'd be like screaming into the void. And without your authorship, without these stories that you write and post online, we really wouldn't have much of a show because we'd have nothing to talk about. So thank you. Until next time, I have been your host, Review Cultist.
And I'm Adam.
I'm Brownie.
And I'm Jeremy.
And this has been Al Dente Rigamortis. Sleep well.